Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Carrie and Dani. And as you can see, it's nice and warm where Carrie is, and I'm in my pink fluffy marshmallow suit because it's cold down here and early in the morning. Um, Carrie,
Yes,
I hope you, I hope you're feeling emotionally like brave and strong today because I had a thought. I was reading this article about I was reading an article about no, sort of about it borders on people pleasing and stuff like that. And it's about, are you too nice? Are you too nice was the article, and it was about growing up in high demand religions and
mm-hmm.
how, and this is not like ordinary general you're a nice person type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was about how high control religions cause um it can how what we're taught about what is nice and what you have to do to be nice. And it's like a compulsive niceness that
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a default mode of being. So it stops you from standing up for yourself. It might make it hard to express healthy anger. It can make it
Mm-hmm.
hard to set boundaries that support your
Mm-hmm.
well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and I was thinking about how this sort of niceness becomes stuck like in your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And that, we read all those books about boundaries and stuff, but learning to set boundaries doesn't just make it go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, before I get into a little bit more about how and why this sort of niceness affects things,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it might be a good idea for us to talk about it because a lot of our listeners have come out of high demand religions as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be something that they're struggling with, people pleasing, setting boundaries. Um, and they might still be getting emotionally rewarded for being nice. Let's
Yes.
face it, being
Yep.
too nice is one of those things that generally people love about somebody else
Mm-hmm.
because, but it's only rewarded and people love too nice people generally because it suits them. It's the
Mm-hmm.
people that benefit from you not setting boundaries that generally enjoy it the most. And
Of course.
so I was pondering it and I thought, who is one of the nicest people I know that maybe didn't used to find it so easy to say no? And I thought, Carrie's just so nice.
Mm, yes.
So my
Yeah.
so nice friend. What do you think about how you have been and where you are now? And is this something you've thought about much?
No, I mean it's certainly something I've thought about a ton is because, when you're growing and for those who don't remember or don't know, I was married to a pa I mean, we're still married, but my husband was a minister for 20 years. So that's when you're the preacher's wife, there's an expectation of niceness, and helpfulness and showing up and doing things and I think that um part of that was reasonable. Um, I think now, and mind you, I walked into the parsonage and started being a pastor's wife when I was just a month past my 23rd birthday.
Oh, so young.
I was very young, and my husband had just turned 25. So both of us have fairly older souls. People know what that means, where we're relatively mature for our age, but still babies. And so saying no can be very hard to different obligations. Once I had kids, it was easier to say no. And I'll say my husband was very good about protecting my space and allowing things to be my decision,
Oh,
as far as what I was going to be involved with. But when your kids are little, you can just say, sorry, I got to be home with the kids. Got me out of being on board, church board and everything. But now there's different factors that are coming in right now. I'm an empty nester now. Kids don't, I mean, my son lives at home, but he works second shift, so he's not here. So the day-to-day mom stuff is not there anymore. Um, I work a couple of days a week at a dental office, and my time is pretty much my own otherwise. So I can choose to do different things, but I'm also in my late 40s. And so those of you who are women know things change with the niceness hormones kind of shift and all of that. And so there's a combination of factors happening, Danny, where am I still a nice person? I think so because I think we are supposed to, being polite and kind and nice, but I want my niceness to be authentic, and so people know that I actually truly do care, you
Yeah.
know?
I don't even think it's about being nice in a way that's not authentic. I think when
Right.
you grow up in a high control religion, it shapes who you are from a really
Mm-hmm.
young age.
Yeah.
It shapes you, and you're expected to go beyond the nicest that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, I was just thinking back to the people I know and things. Didn't we talk one time? I don't think it was actually on here though. It might have been in a conversation we're having normally about uh, apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
I think something happened, and I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry about that, Carrie. And they went, oh, actually, you know what? I'm not. We had a laugh about over apologizing for things that we're not really sorry for because it was trained into us. It's part of being nice.
And you'd never want anybody to be uncomfortable.
Oh,
I think
that
is part of that, is where you know, you want to say something to, you know, give your opinion or something like that, but then you feel like you need to apologize because you're making somebody else uncomfortable by expressing yourself or drawing a boundary.
yeah. And so in the version of the high control religion I grew up in, um, being nice and emotionally caring for others, being easy, and like you said, not making them uncomfortable,
And we don't want to cause our
um,
brother to stumble.
not wanting to cause your brother to stumble. Those things were shared with me as being godly.
Hmm.
And so it's it's easy to say this is just who I am. Like I'm in my 50s, I'm a generation, a decade above you. I'm just in my 50s, it's just who I am. But actually, how we grew up and the messages that we got about what is selfish and what is rebellious and what is unloving and what is sinful, and about how
Hmm.
good submission and self-sacrifice were. Those things were taught to us over and over and over again in our teenage years, and they do change who you are and how you become.
Hmm.
And it's different now. I don't think anyone would accuse me of being too nice now. But when I think back, I can remember times when I was still sweet, even
Hmm.
when I was actually hurt and angry. So I can think of times when it was like a split experience and I'd be actually resentment underneath, and the resentment would just be slowly building. I'd be getting more and more annoyed. But there
Inside you're
was,
boiling and really want to say something and let them have it, but on the outside you're still peaceful, calm, and nice and sweet.
because it's godly,
Hmm.
it's not sinful. And I think that, yeah, I don't want people to go preaching and quoting those verses to me and Peter that talk about taking every thought into submission and capturing them stuff, because I truly believe in that stuff. I
Hmm.
do believe in taking every thought captive and thinking about things. Um, but this is a layer underneath that.
Hmm. Where I think and then at some point it ends up where you are unwilling to speak up for your own safety, potentially emotional, physical, social safety, and because you don't want to be mean, you don't want to be not nice, So, um, anyway, sorry, the cat's bothering me again.
She's so cute.
Yes, he's a good boy. Um, and that's where we needed to speak up a little more bit more than we did. And I remember I was just the last couple of days I've been really thinking about this, like what traumas happened, as a kid. Like, are there little events I can harken back to in my memory that maybe made sure I was extremely well behaved and I was always a good little rule follower. When I was in Pathfinders, my uniform was always just so, and all the pins were in all the right spots. And that was just me. And I have a memory of, I don't know if I was much more than 4 years old, maybe 5. and it was Vacation Bible School or something. We were in the church sanctuary midweek, and we had the big poster boards with songs. You know, you probably did that before, of course, before everything was on the screen.
Yep.
And we were singing along, and I don't remember who the pastor was, but I was whispering to my friend or talking or laughing or something, and the pastor called me out in the middle of his talk, embarrassed me so hard. And I think that was probably one of the only ones I can really think of that I'm just like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to be very good. I don't want to be embarrassed. And so for me, that was something that just stuck into me where I'm like, I better be nice, I better be behave, better be polite. I don't want to get caught because they're going to embarrass me.
Yep. Yes. And it's easy to just say, oh, yep. Don't go looking for trouble where there is none. If you're happy with who you are now, don't look at the past. It doesn't really matter. But again, I'm not talking about just being normal, culturally appropriate nice. I'm talking about the niceness that's ingrained and taught into you. And like you said, that moment really, really impacted you.
Hmm.
And what the problem with it is, and why I guess I wanted to talk about it, is because of the number of adults I talk to that can't say no. Been thinking about this last couple of weeks, and um, it did. Yeah. So when I was in particular, I was talking to when they started talking, there was 20 years of stories of how they are the bottom rung of the family. They sacrifice everything. They don't say no. They do everything they can to keep the peace. They work really hard to love people because if you love them properly, then they'll love you back. And it never happens. They're not loved back. Nobody looks out for them. Nobody's giving back to them the stuff they're getting. And
Hmm.
they grew up in a different high demand religion to me, but there's no space in their life to say no. And I guess why I wanted to ask you about it and just a talk about it for our listeners is because even though it seems little and so many years ago, the problem is that it resets your nervous system.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you. So if you think about now, if you think about the last time that you wanted to say no to something or wanted to set a boundary, and you probably did as an adult now, you said no. But if you think about was the thought that went into it, how hard it was to say no. And then the things that often people don't stop and think about is what is your body telling you? Did you get nervous? Did your heart rate go up? Did your body temperature go up? Did your mouth get really dry? How long did you think about it for? Did you have a headache for 2 days? Were you
Hmm.
more tired than normal and did you not want to cook dinner? And you thought, oh man, I'm just tired. I don't know why. But actually, it was your nervous system sucking up all your energy trying to cope with doing something that as a child and a teenager in our high control religion was really risky.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it wasn't risky to other kids that grew up like without
Hmm.
those religious set of beliefs.
Hmm.
So do you notice any of those things in yourself ever?
Yeah, sometimes when somebody asks me to do something, or if I need to ask somebody to do something for me, or stop. The cat likes my necklace. He's trying to bite it off of me. So he's being a little bad boy. Um, so I know that you get really nervous that you want to ask somebody to do something or you want to tell them no or and I will text instead of call because it's just easier, and you're so nervous. You're like, "Oh, I need to ask somebody about say the rent check is not hasn't shown up, and I need
Mm-hmm.
to ask them about it. And you're so scared of their response. And the response is back is easy. It's lighthearted. They're not mad. And you're like, why did I get myself so worked up 4 days before I got brave enough to do this? Because you just don't, I know for me, I don't want to be an inconvenience. I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I don't want to ask people for stuff, because I can do things myself.
Yep. Um,
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people have grown up with all of those things, don't be an inconvenience.
Hmm. Yeah.
Don't
Yep.
ask. and a lot of people have grown up with it. But I think if you've grown up, it's not you. This is not unique to high control religions, but if you've grown up in a high control religion, I'm looking at my experiences and thinking about things as I try to reprocess everything and change more still. Um, Growing up in a high control religion adds an extra layer to it.
Yes.
If you think of it as I was thinking about, ties that bind you up. It's just an extra
Hmm.
layer. And when you
Hmm.
were talking, the thing that came to mind and that I heard when you shared those last little list of things was I thought, wow, it's almost like Carrie was told, don't take up space.
Probably not in so many words. I don't think anybody ever told me not to take up space, but I think it's something you just kind of absorb from the culture you grow up in.
Yeah. If you're encouraged not to do anything of those things that, um, you know, a part of being you, or that set the
Hmm.
boundary around who you are and what you want, even as a teenager and a child especially, then yeah, the underlying message is just be small, don't take up space, and don't be a problem.
Hmm. And if you can do something yourself, do it. It's easier to do it yourself than to ask. One example that just comes across my mind is when my husband was pastoring. I think for maybe 3 years, I was the children's story coordinator for church,
Hmm.
and I probably told the story 85 to 90% of the time. It was just easier to do it myself. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, I did it better than a lot of the other people anyway. So, and people would say, "Oh, we love your stories." So, of course, I want that for affirmation, you know. You like to hear
Yep.
that.
So you
Or my
keep
friends would
going.
be like, "Why didn't you tell the story?" You know?
And the question, I guess, underneath that is
Yeah.
when you think back on it, so you got a lot of good things out of it. You really enjoyed the affirmation.
Yep.
It was less stress for you to just do it
Hmm.
yourself than it
Hmm.
was to actually try and organize another person and then trust them to turn up and then
Yep.
ask someone to do something when you've been taught earlier not to ask.
Hmm.
Don't you don't. So when you think back on those things, did you actually really enjoy telling the story? Because at no point there did you say you enjoyed it. You just expressed to me all the benefits that you got out of it. You enjoyed the affirmation and you did it yourself
Hmm.
because it was easier than trying to organize someone else.
I
But
think
nowhere there did.
I think I did actually enjoy it, for the most part. Um, because it was usually kind of fun. I could be animated and different things, but I mean, would I have been super disappointed if I didn't do it anymore? No, because I haven't told a children's story at church in a very long time now, 5 years probably.
Well, you better hope someone from your new church isn't watching this. You could have another job.
Well, and the nice thing, they don't do children's story at the church I attend. It's the mega church concept where the kids are in a separate deal, and I go and actually help out in there, but I don't
Hmm.
teach. I tell them I'm the bouncer in the back. I keep the kids in line.
Yeah, see, the church I grew up in, the kids weren't separate from the adults. We had books and little fuzzy felt games. Did you have those fuzzy felts, little boards? And they had little tiny felt people and it stuck to a little fuzzy board. So you could make little, and I had camels and baby Jesuses and Bible pictures. This
I
was when I was really little. I must have been about 5 or 6. And you could make little pictures with them.
I had them
And they
for
did,
my kids. I don't remember having them for myself.
oh, I had some
I
for
might
me.
have. I don't really remember. I do know that I was able to take I had a little purse that I had my little things in that I could play with during church. And then once I hit like a certain age, I don't remember what age it was that mom and dad decided I needed to pay attention. So as soon as the pastor started, I had to put my little purse away and just sit and
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah. Whether it was interesting. Yeah. And so perfect story of being forced to look outwardly like you were quiet, not moving, immobile,
Hmm.
that fits in the whole trauma spectrum, sitting immobile and quiet when all
Mhm.
this other stuff's going on inside.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
some might say, oh, it's a useful skill. You can sit in board meetings at work and actually be on another planet. But it's never a useful skill to learn to separate parts of who you are.
Mm.
It
Hmm.
causes a split. Um,
Yeah, because you kind of float, not necessarily really float above your body, but you're just separating and you're daydreaming. Looking out the window of the sanctuary, we didn't have stained glass windows, so you could look outside and see the playground and go, I want to go play.
so we called it daydreaming and, oh, my kid's
Yep.
daydreaming and not listening. But if you went into therapy these days, it would be called dissociation, and it would be a really bad thing. It was a useful skill to help us survive a situation,
Yeah.
but it can not always, but it can also become something that makes life hard because you have taught your nervous system to disconnect from itself when things are
Hmm.
unpleasant rather than to be fully present in the moment. And it can affect everything from setting boundaries to processing grief because your nervous system's in a habit of going off somewhere else when things are unpleasant.
Yeah. I mean, because we're taught not to be uncomfortable. We don't want to make other people uncomfortable. We're not supposed to be uncomfortable. And so it's easier just to suppress and push away the feelings than to actually address them.
Yeah, that story you told about being told off from the front when you were little, I
Hmm.
don't know if it's not something I can say that I've seen when in the last couple of years I was attending church. Okay, so it's probably the culture's changed, but I remember that. I remember even in my 20s and 30s, at different times, pastors from the in the middle of the service
Hmm.
would tell people would polite. Well, I was going to say
Hmm.
politely tell people off, but actually, see, that's the brainwashing in my head from the high control religion. There's no polite way to tell off an adult
No.
in
And
front of 70 or 80 other adults for talking.
this
And
was like I think it was just if I remember right, it was just kids.
yeah,
So but still, in order to do that, it was very I don't remember which pastor. I'm sure he's gone now because he was an older
yeah,
pastor. I'd have to ask my mom if she remembers who was the pastor at that time, but we would have some interim guys because we were so close to the seminary that if we were
yeah,
between pastors, we had a pastor.
yeah. I just was thinking, I can remember in my 20s and 30s and even late 30s, pastors that have said stuff from the front about, being quiet or noise down the back and stuff like that. And at the time, I just was like, yeah, good on you, tell them off. But there is no nice way to do it. Just thinking about when I think about the high level of control that was executed, and then if I compare that to the times I've gone to meetings, if I think about seriously, I hated going to church because it was boring and I had to sit still and be quiet for hours. Seriously,
Hmm.
for hours, and you got into trouble if you weren't still and quiet. If I compare that to the times I have in later years, so over the last 15 to 20 years, the times that I've gone onto the marae. So the marae is the Maori meeting places here in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about the times I've gone onto the marae. And the first time I went, I was like, huh, because all the kids, pretty much all the kids under the age of 12, so the adults are having a serious meeting,
Hmm.
and I was there in a professional capacity. And the adults are having a serious meeting, and all the kids under the age of 12, they're running around, they're playing games, they're running around the back, they're running around the sides. You can see them running around, they're making noise. And I remember the first time I thought, oh my goodness, this is just so disrespectful. This is terrible. And it wasn't till I started to disconnect myself from the Adventist church and the high control religion I grew up in that I realized it wasn't terrible. I realized how their beliefs inside their culture about children was beautiful.
Hmm.
That the kids are allowed to run around, they're allowed to have a childhood, they're allowed to make noise and disturb the adults.
Hmm.
And it was, and it's perfectly okay. And because, of course, that whole culture would often spill over into some of the churches as well.
Hmm.
And everything gets frowned upon because your kids are making noise. I can think of one occasion where I don't know if it was someone from the front or just somebody that was in a position of power in the church and said to someone, can you take your child out?
Mm.
And I thought that was perfectly reasonable.
Hmm.
But when I look back on these experiences, the truth is it's actually more reasonable to let a child be a child.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's been moving to New Zealand and learning a different culture. I think was one of the best things that happened to me.
Because you grew up, were you born in Australia or New Zealand?
Yeah. No, I was born
Yep.
in Australia, and so originally grew up in very, very proper um, European
Yep.
white churches. More, I
Which,
guess, like some of the evangelical stuff you see on the television at the moment happening in America. So very,
yeah.
so yeah, very proper.
Hmm.
And I'm really, really glad that I really am glad that we moved to New Zealand. I've no desire to. I learned so many different things here. Um, I can remember the first time we were up the top of the North Island. I can remember the first time I actually went to a predominantly a church that was predominantly Maori and island culture. And I think
Hmm.
I was about 13 years old.
Mm.
And I'd been in New Zealand about a year. That was my first experience because we'd started off in the normal where parents were comfortable, but we'd been traveling. And it was
Hmm.
incredible. And it was my first experience. And to go from a normal, really emotionally staid and white culture church where you might have three people shake your hand and nobody would shake your hand if you're a child.
Mm.
There's this space. I'm the parents, we're the adults, we're
Right. Right.
important. These are
Yeah.
my children. And then to go to church where I think I was horrified. I was hugged and kissed by like 60 people.
Hmm.
It was part of the hello and the greeting. And I was like, ah! It was such a shock.
I think
But
it's so beautiful to interact with other cultures. It's just it broadens your perspective of life.
oh my goodness, it's been amazing. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and outside of what we're talking about here, I mean, what's even amazing, and I love once I got to learn some of them was some of the cultural stories around that they have around how life began and about men and women and gender roles and stuff like that are just non-existent to some extent or so different to the ones I grew up with. But
Hmm.
again, I didn't just grow up with normal European gender role beliefs. I grew up with the ones that are taught inside a high control religion,
Yes. Yep.
which are different again.
Hmm.
They're a whole nother level. So back to the people pleasing thing. So I was thinking about it recently because a couple of weeks back I'd been feeling not well, and so my my sweetheart had been outside and he had shoveled all the poo and he'd filled all the hay nets for the ponies and fed the chickens and he'd done all the jobs. And I wasn't sick. I just wasn't feeling great. I had a really low energy day. One of these things that happen when you get to the menopausal, the menopausal,
Yep.
premenopausal ages, is you just have
Yep.
energy crash days. So there's no real good excuse for it. And so he'd been outside for a couple of hours doing all the jobs. The sun was shining, and I was sitting in my chair with my cat on my knee. And the cats are like a heavyweight, you can't move.
Hmm.
Thinking, I should get dinner. He's working so hard. I should get dinner. Oh my goodness. And so he came in and brought in some logs for the fire and some kindling for
Hmm.
the next day. So it'd all be ready. And I can remember going, oh, I'm so sorry. I haven't done anything. I've just been sitting in my chair cuddling the cat. And I had this moment of like, this wee moment of when my, I could feel my heart rate was up, and this wee moment of, I haven't done the right thing. Oh no, I'm such a bad person. Because I grew up in a culture where, did you get that whole female thing where, and he hadn't been to work as an off to work somewhere else, he's retired, but he'd been to work
Sure,
outside,
sure.
where, the man comes home from work and were you taught that you're supposed to do your hair nicely and put on a nice top and make sure dinner's ready, give them half an hour of quiet and silence to actually relax and decompress before you ask anything of them, no matter how you feel or how traumatized you are. There's this like little thing we were taught about how things are supposed to work to make it
Mm-hmm.
easy and comfortable for the man. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe those things anymore. And I thought that I'd moved past them. But it was interesting to see how deep those ingrained things from childhood and teenage years are still there. Because for a moment I was like, oh no, I haven't done it. And he's just like, don't worry about it. Stay in your chair. I can
All
peel
right.
potatoes. I can
Yeah.
peel potatoes. I mean, what's the problem?
Oh.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a hangover from how I grew up as a kid. And it doesn't happen very often, but it
Hmm.
surprises me sometimes that it's still there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just ingrained habits, and I find myself doing the same thing. I come home on the days I've worked, I sit down and then I just don't move. And I'm like, I could be doing a whole lot of stuff. Like I could get the vacuum cleaner, I could, there's all kinds of things that I could or should be doing, but I'm just relaxing. And I'm trying not to feel guilty about it, but I'm not sure if that's ever going to completely go away, you know? I don't know.
Because the devil finds work for idle hands and busyness is next to godliness.
Mm-hmm. We don't, I mean, heaven forbid those idle hands should allow us to relax, rest, and sit in the presence of the Lord instead of work, 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 work all the time.
Well, the other
Mhm.
thing is, there's another whole topic we won't start today, but my belief about what it means to sit in the presence of the Lord has totally changed as well. It used to mean religious music, Bible readings, and if you can't read your Bible, run through your text in your head. I mean, these days, some days it means listening to my horse eat grass. They eat really noisily.
Mhm. Yeah.
And no, I'm not reciting Bible texts or talking to God in that time. I'm just enjoying listening to my horse eat grass.
Yeah. Because God made
Especially
the
if it's
horse.
late in the day and the light's low and the grass is extra green and the shadows are long. That gold now for taking photos.
Oh,
I know you
yes.
take pictures.
Yes. Yes, that's awesome. Well, we only have a few minutes left, Danny, it looks like. But
Well,
yeah.
what I want to say to anybody listening that have a think about it.
Hmm.
Think about what you were taught. Think about how it still impacts you. Look for times when your body or your nervous system is changing and your heart rate picks up or your body temperature lifts or things like that. Because your body will often tell you, even though we've been taught to ignore it in the religion I grew up in, it will
Hmm.
tell you when actually you might be being too nice and doing something that you don't really want to do. And there'll be times when maybe it's appropriate.
Hmm. Yeah.
Look, there's times when it's appropriate, but there's also times when it's appropriate. It is okay to sit down when you get home from a long day's work and relax. It is
Hmm.
okay to prioritize yourself. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness, it feels bad to even say it's okay to prioritize yourself because you're supposed to love others more. But don't forget the Bible says love others as you love yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if we've both spent time on airplanes, the first thing they say is when the oxygen mask drops, put yours on first and then help the people around you if they need help. Because we're no good to
Absolutely.
anybody else if we don't have oxygen to breathe.
Absolutely. So, everyone, go breathe oxygen.
Yes, make sure you get yours and then make sure others get theirs too. But we've got to get our oxygen, you know? And yeah.
So I guess that's another one of these no tidy ending topics
Mm-mm.
because it's an ongoing thing. As long as we live, we change.
And I'm sure we'll talk about it more than once. I think we've talked about this before, probably all different, but all right. Everybody like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the next conversations with Carrie and Dani.
Mm.
Have a blessed day, guys.